Hello again, everyone. This is Lou Rossetti speaking as the Blue Ridge Reporter on Tuesday evening, February 7th, 2012, the day when a federal appeals court in California ruled that California's law prohibiting marriage between homosexuals was unconstitutional based on the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause. This is a tragic day. The court said the Equal Protection Clause requires a legitimate basis for making a distinction in the way the law treats classes of people. The court said, in essence, that the biblical concept of a man and a woman only as suitable for marriage, marriage being defined only by a man and a woman, is not a legitimate basis. The court said basically the biblical tradition in this country is not legitimate when it comes to matters of law. The court's implying it's a church thing for you silly Christians, but it's not anything the law can turn on, can rest on. Of course, this is going to be appealed to the Supreme Court, and we'll see what occurs then. The point is, however, this is spreading around the country. There is a growing support for homosexual marriages, civil unions, and as a prelude to full-fledged support for homosexual marriage. That's how leftist ideas progress usually, in stages, civil unions first, and afterwards, well, why not get married? Okay, then, homosexual marriage. The decision is bad enough, but it's not simply a legal issue. It's a cultural, political issue. And that brings us to the danger of Ron Paul. He is popular among many Christians. They don't realize what Ron Paul stands for. Ron Paul stands for what he calls individual liberty. Understand that to be a buzz phrase. That should be like alarm bells going off. He means by that homosexual marriage, he calls that a consensual relationship, a voluntary relationship, and as he said, I don't care what you call it. You want to call it marriage, call it marriage. You want to call it civil union, fine. But his view of the libertarian philosophy, in fact, he does espouse the libertarian philosophy, is that such relationships are just fine, and the idea of the Bible giving content to law is negated by Ron Paul's philosophy. He stands opposed to it. This man, by the way, who was a believing Christian and stands then for a second dangerous proposition. You might be a believing Christian, but you take your Bible stuff and you keep it in church. Maybe you say your little blessing around the dinner table, and that's it. But you don't bring your Bible stuff into the public arena and say that the Bible gives content to the civil law, as once occurred in this country. No. We're more sophisticated today, and we can move on to homosexual and lesbian marriages because the liberty provision of the Constitution must be understood that way. You'll find this in surprising places. I did. There was a congressional campaign in my district a few years ago. There was a military officer, retired, then an airline pilot, and a professing Christian. And during his campaign, I took the time to meet him. I was impressed by his profession of faith. I made a fairly substantial donation and found out thereafter that he had no objection to appointing homosexuals to his staff, who, if he were elected to Congress, so therefore they would be advising him and advancing their agenda through his particular congressional office. When I asked him about this, he said, I work with homosexuals all the time. They're really nice people, which is totally beside the point. But here's a professing Christian like Ron Paul saying, I can believe that, but that's not suitable. Our God, you don't bring our God in the public arena. He's not suitable for polite company. It's just only for us Christians. And that's what Ron Paul stands for. The idea of liberty is a word that needs to be filled with content. certain things are within liberty. Certain things are licentious. They are simply sin. But the libertarian defines liberty as expansively as the human mind can make it to be, to include everything that you might want to do. So understand, this is the danger of Ron Paul advancing this notion, and don't think courts don't respond to political changes, the changes in the culture. That's how Roe v. Wade came to be. The court said, yeah, it's safe to walk out now and make this decision because the population basically in many areas is with us. I said in a video I did just 2 days ago that we might see one day a Supreme Court striking down all the laws in every state that limit marriage to one man, one woman on the liberty provision. Because in 1992, the court sustained an attack on Roe v. Wade and said, yes, we're going to confirm it. We're going to reconfirm Roe. We reconfirm it on its shaky privacy basis, but we're going to add to it and bolster it, put it on the liberty basis. Having the opportunity to abort your child, make the womb a tomb, in essence, so the womb a grave, that is part of liberty. This same thinking could be used for the homosexual agenda, but already a California court just took another provision of the 14th Amendment, the Equal Protection Clause, and used it that way. Ron Paul will be leaving Congress at the end of this year. He will not win the Republican nomination. He might get some kind of concession in the platform if he can leverage that. It's not going to be significant. It's mostly going to be for show. But his son, Rand Paul, United States Senator, he's going to run probably for president in 4 years. If Rand Paul is like Ron Paul on these issues, Christians should not only disavow him and not support him, they need to actively work against this libertarian thinking. It is an extremely dangerous and seductive thing because it's largely not recognized for what it is and is appealing because of its constitutional fidelity on economic issues and on issues regarding the scope and reach of the government as properly understood, not when it comes to homosexual marriages. This is Louis Setti speaking as the Blue Ridge Reporter.